Hello there, welcome back. I'm talking about Rabid Remake today. This was made by the Soska Sisters this year. They've done things like American Mary and a couple of films with WWE. Like See No Evil 2. This was a film that was... Somebody got the rights to Rabid, the Cronenberg film, and they tried a script that didn't meet with approval, so they decided to go with directors who might have a point of view maybe interested in similar things that David Cronenberg would have been interested in the 70s, so they got the Soska Sisters to do it, and they created a pretty good remake. It's one of those remakes that's good because it's obviously a remake, but it's not trying to do the same thing as the original. I mean, it's similar in some ways to the Fly remake in that there was an original film and then they thought, okay, there's things here that we can take and things that we don't want to do. I mean, this one's much more influenced by Cronenberg than The Fly was influenced by the original film. But there was it was influenced, but it was thought through in a different way from the original film. I mean, the big difference is Cronenberg is a guy who wrote, the lead character was a woman, and this one it's a woman writers and directors who are writing about a woman lead character. So even though she goes through similar experiences from the original, it's done from a slightly different perspective, and it is the big difference really. But there's also other big differences. This one's much more fashion conscious. It's much more focused on what colours do to you as you watch the films. It's much more influenced by like Michael Pill things and maybe later Cronenberg like Dead Ringers. It's just more influenced by colours and art and fashion and how we present ourselves to the world. While the original Cronenberg film was shot much more like a documentary really, where it was winter in Canada, this girl gets a crash, she gets surgery on her to try and save her life. The surgery goes wrong and she ends up turning into a monster. But it was done very matter of fact. The lead character was sympathetic and she was out of control, she didn't know what's happened to her, but it was shot like in the middle of the Canadian winter. There was a big influence, a big focus on the rabid infection that spread through the city and how the city collapsed around about her problem. In this one, they probably had less money than the first version, is my guess. So they couldn't go completely mental on the rabid outbreak. There just wasn't the money. I mean, even the crash that caused her problems in the first place isn't seen. So it does feel that there's a budget shortfall somewhere, or they were given like, this amount of money you've given, this is what you can spend on, or what you can't spend on, this is what we can afford, so that they work around those limitations. But it doesn't matter because they focus on what they want to focus on. So the crash isn't the focus, so you don't see the crash, you just see they use sound effects for it. But they do put money on natural gore and making sure there's obviously they had to do a certain amount of gore for a remake of Rabid, but they chose where they wanted the money to be spent. So you get a lot. The big difference is you get a lot more time with Rose, the lead character, as a person before the Rabid outbreak takes place. I mean, I think in Cronenberg's film, you get like 20 minutes, then the Rabid outbreak starts to build and build and build. And this one's like halfway through the film before the Rabid outbreak really starts to get going. It feels like there's much more time before we get there. There's also the thing that in this one she has a choice in the matter whether she has that surgery or not. I think the last one, the Cronenberg one, it's life-saving type of thing. So basically in this one, Rose is played by Laura Vanderbilt. She's like she works in the fashion industry, a lowly, self-conscious person with a couple of scars on her face from a crash when she was a child. She's working, she doesn't have much self-esteem. she's working for this artist guy who's a fashion designer who's a bit pretentious. She's has no confidence in her abilities and or her looks or anything else, and she's just like a wallflower. She's got a best friend who is a model who basically her family brought Rose up after the crash, so it's almost like they're sisters, really, best friends kind of slash sisters. And it's the build up. Her friend tries to set her up with this guy who she knows she fancies, but once Rose finds out about that, she's angry and upset and leaves quickly in a bad mood. And that's when she gets in the crash because she wasn't looking where she was going. Half her face has been ripped off. Some of her intestines have been destroyed. So in other words, she's problems eating. So her teeth are kind of tied. Because part of her jaw's been dislocated, it's like it's real damage. There's no way to hide it. It's like it's severe damage. So she can't speak because her jaw's been clamped together. So they really play up this thing about what life's like for her after the crash. It really is a horrific experience. She thinks she's a monster, and that's when the evil medical guy's pregnancy released this new stem cell, really advanced, really different. You know, we can do normal stem cell work, and we can do normal procedures, but we want to advance it, and the best way to do it is offer it for free to people like her who can't afford it, but it's to show that this thing works. So what they're going to do is give it to people who can't afford it to actually prove it works, so they can sell it on to the mass market eventually. So she agrees to go for the procedure, and when she comes out of the procedure, her face is now perfect. Even the scars from before are gone. So she's no scars, no nothing. Her face is perfect, better than before. Her intestines have been healed as well, so she's as good as new. And her confidence has increased. But so is her desires, and so is her, she's this kind of, more lusty and more confident. She's much more sure of herself. And she kisses this guy who in the pool just after the surgery, because she's just like energised, and she just bites on the lip as a playful thing and walks away because she's a bit disturbed by it. And then she just leaves the hospital once she's discharged, and they give her some stuff to drink to make her. It's basically it's in this red canister, and she gives tons of them, and she gives some drugs as well to help her intestines and her face settle in. She said this is a temporary thing. It's just allowing your body to settle into the changes that will eventually you'll wean off it. It's just like this is what you need. Otherwise, you're going to have stomach cramps and you're going to be really ill. You just need to do this to allow nature to heal itself. So that's fine. That's okay. So she's doing that. She's drinking the thing, and she's starting to have dreams. And the dreams are of her biting people and ripping their throats out and things. And obviously, and suddenly these people turn rabid. You see them actually in the film going rabid and starting to attack other people. So obviously she thinks she's dreaming, she thinks she's hallucinating because of the drugs she's on. It turns out it's not, it's because she's actually rabid. She's like the prime person to infect other people. And all this stuff you've got from the Cronenberg film, there's certain things that are more developed in Cronenberg film, some things are less developed. It depends on where the influence is. I mean, there's a thing in the Cronenberg film where under her ulster there's a penis thing that escapes, and that thing attacks people. In this one, it's her mouth she attacks them with, but she gets this thing later on, and it's much less a penis, more kind of tentacle, which is less disturbing actually. This really is. It looks like a special effect. It's fun to watch, but it's not as disturbing as the Cronenberg version. But the bite thing is much more animalistic. The rabid people feel more brutal in this film. There's some nice humour, like the first person that becomes rabid as an actor, as a vain actor in a soap opera. And he attacks someone who's jealous of in the cast and rips the guy's face off. That's a lot of fun. It's gratuitous but loads of fun. And the whole thing gets more and more out of control. As her life gets better, the society around her gets worse. And there's a lot of details about her. Her designs, things she's had in her head for a while. In design, she actually starts the confidence to show people, and the pretentious designer thinks they're all great, so he sort of focuses on her and tries to make her better because he can see that she's a talent. So it's like living during the day, it's like heaven, and night is hell, and it's kind of, there's lots of red, lots of sense of art, and an apocalypse through art is the idea, which is something that's nothing to do with Cronenberg, but here it is. It feels much more Michael Powell-esque, much more mythological, and it's pretty wonderful. I mean, I really enjoyed the style because it just didn't feel like there's like, we've got the general setup of the original film, and there's certain plot beats we have to hit, and that's it, that's all we're going to take. And there's a couple of little references we'll make to it. I mean, there's the Mad Doctor is called Burroughs, William Burroughs, obviously influenced by the writer William Burroughs. When they do the surgery, they're all decked out as if they're in dead ringers, all in red and stuff. So that whole thing is brought in, it becomes wonderful. The mad scientist, his wife is played by Lynn Lowry, who was from Shivers. You know, there's a couple, I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, you'll see CM Punk's in there and his wife's in there. There's a small part. There's lots of stuff that is kind of fun if you're looking for it. The boyfriend in this one is much more sinister. You know, he's a photographer who likes her, but he's also doing stuff for his own good, and turns out he has other plans as well. That's as far as I'll go. But it's a wonderful film. I'm going to get into spoilers now, really, for the end. Before I do that, I'll say the actress who plays the best friend slash like emotional sister, she's a lot of fun. She doesn't have that much to do, but she's fun though. It's a nice little character to liven the film up whenever it gets a bit too dark. And Laura Vanderbilt's good as well as Rose, so she's playing someone who was an iconic character from the 70s horror, but she does it well. So she's playing someone who's playing a character who's been very well played, so it's kind of difficult, but she ignores the original and does her own thing, which is the best way to do it. So now on the spoilers. The boyfriend is actually working for the doctor. He's monitoring her and taking photographs, like he knows there's something up with her. But despite that, he still feels warmth to her. He's not like, yeah, he may be selfish in some ways, but he's not like a horrible person. He did ask her out earlier on in the film because he did like her, even when she had some scars. So he's not like, oh, this is a scumbag that deserves to die. No, he's a decent person with some character flaws. That's it. I mean, her best friend's the same. She's got character flaws. She sets her up with this guy in the first place. She makes mistakes. Rose makes mistakes. Rose is kind of very off-putting to people and a bit judgmental and things. So no one of the characters are perfect. They've all got their flaws. And as Rose becomes more infected, she does become very delusional. She's very much she doesn't want to be a victim, but she is very focused on what her dream was, and her dream was to get a fashion show, and she does that to almost a delusional level, which is fun because you've got a character who should be paying attention to the outside world, but she's not. So it's good that the characters are very flawed. They're more dimensional than the Cronenberg version. Cronenberg is much more like the disaster taking place. And because Cronenberg had a lot of actors who weren't very good. I mean, Marilyn Chambers as Rose was good, but a lot of the other actors around her weren't. Most of the good ones in that film came from Shivers. But it's like Cronenberg's one of his weakest films for acting, and that one apart from Marilyn Chambers. This one is a better acting generally, and the characters are more fleshed out, and they give it more time to each section of the film because there's less time for the rabid stuff. The rabid stuff still comes through. It's stylised, and it's done well, and it's built up. So they built up and planned it out so you still get the impression of the infection, the mass infection, but you don't need to show like the cities getting destroyed. It's more like a suggestion, but it still works for what it is. But it ties it more to the person and the dislocation of the person from their nightmares and what's happening in nightmares, as well as what's happening in their normal life. And as she develops, she realises she's addicted to blood, and the canisters they're giving her are actually blood. It's not, and and what they've given her, the pills, are just hallucination pills. They're just so that she can dislocate from her life to what she's doing at night. And it's pretty brutal. It's like the most immoral thing possible. And really, at the end, there's a wonderful scene where there's a fashion show taking place during infection, and they're going to ignore it completely because the fashion designer says that's just a bunch of people with head colds. He doesn't care. He wants his fashion show. The fashion show obviously turns into this mass infection zone where the best friend of Rose was infected on the way there, and by the time she gets onto the stage, she's rabid and she ends up ripping the throat out of the guy who was a fashion designer, and she ends up getting shot dead. And it's like there's other models who are also infected and ripping out bits of people, and it's so wonderful because you have all this garish fashion mixed with all the blood, and it's just fun. It's a nice little Mickey take the pretensions of the art and fashion. But the thing, they take fashion serious as well. It's obviously a passion for these people involved in it, but they use the fashion world as it's a extension of the character's psyche and the sort of fairy story logic for all. So the whole thing feels like a fairy story of this young woman who's been corrupted by an infection and where it leads. And the way it leads is back to the place where she was infected, which is the doctor's lab. And after the whole site's fallen apart, we find out that everyone was put down. The people who were found rabid were shot, just been killed. It's like they just sent the army and destroyed them. But that doesn't matter to the guy who started it all. He's the mad scientist who started this whole thing because his wife got sick of cancer, and the cancer continued, but he found ways to create immortality for himself, for her, his wife. But and Rose is the next person who's got that, and she's the next stage as well. She's like the next experiment, and she doesn't want it. She tries to cut her own throat and cut off the tentacle in her arm, but they just grow back, and her throat heals because the stem cell has become something else, and she's immortal. And now she's trapped, and she started as a vegetarian, and now she has to eat meat and drink blood and to survive, and her body will always force her to that to survive, and she's become the kind of thing she hates. And it's kind of a dark ending where everyone dies apart from her and the mad scientist. But it's wonderfully dark. It works. In the original film, Rose dies at the end. She gets infected and she dies. In this one, she survives, and it's almost like the craziness of the science is going to keep going. And it has a kind of feel of a lot of 60s, 70s written sci-fi and there's a lot of sense of the technology and science was always going to be tied to big business, and it was all about making sure the rich could survive onwards and upwards, and the other people don't matter. So everyone who dies in this film, it's almost like they don't matter. They're just the collateral damage as they figure this thing out, and they're just the kind of the people that need to die to let the immortals live. And it's a wonderfully dark, twisted ending where the heroine's corrupted ultimately. I mean, she does the sacrifice, like slit her own throat. It's a pretty brutal scene, but doesn't matter. She still survives. So this is a wonderful little remake. It's definitely on the better end of the remake scale. It's its own thing. You can watch it without referencing the original. It's nice to reference the original, say, oh, this is where they changed, but its identity is not the original. This they gave it to people who couldn't make who wouldn't want to make a remake that was just a solid, you know, soulless remake. They just like go and do your own thing with it, and they did their own thing with it. And it's really terrific because it's like, it feels very different. It's the colours are different. There's all these reds, yellows, and they focus the budget on what they're interested in rather than trying to be slavish to Cronenberg. There's a couple of references, but then they move on with the film. There's a nice element of the bonding between the women that we wouldn't get from a guy director because the guys don't get that, and there's lots of fun scenes with her, Rose, and her pal going out drinking, and which leads to her tearing the guts out of some guy, which is really funny. There's a nice sense of humour throughout. I mean, it's much more humorous than the Cronenberg one, but the humour doesn't take over from the horror and the empathy of what's going on, and the sympathy for Rose. It doesn't get in the way of that. It's just the world's funnier and the world's a bit more satirical, and they embrace that, but then they always cut it back into what the film's about. And there's also some funny bits where there's all this like modern art in the doctor's offices, which is like really bad taste, but it sets up the end and sets up the logic, which feels like, yeah, this is what he's into, this is his world, this is his expression of his world. So it works. It feels a bit odd when you first see it, but actually by the time it gets towards the end, it all makes sense of the world and what the world is and what this guy wants. So it's expressionistic, it's not naturalistic at all. And that's the big difference. This is expressionistic, and the Cronenberg film is naturalistic. That's the big difference between them. This is a really wonderful film. It's really worth seeing. I highly recommend it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back tomorrow with the final video of the week. Okay, right, bye.